Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from Extra Supermarket 8858. AITA for leaving my own birthday dinner because my girlfriend turned it into a proposal for herself. I, 28M, had my birthday dinner last weekend, and my girlfriend, Sarah, 27F, offered to plan it. I was excited because I usually keep things low-key, but she said she wanted to make it special. She booked a nice restaurant and invited close friends and family. Everything was going great until it was time for dessert. The waiter brought out a cake, but instead of my name, it said, "Will you marry me, Sarah?" I was completely blindsided. Sarah got all teary-eyed, turned to me and said, "Well, this is the best surprise ever, right?" Everyone around us started clapping, and her friends were filming. I just sat there stunned. She took my silence as hesitation and started going on about how she knew I wasn't big on grand gestures, but she couldn't wait anymore, so she took matters into her own hands. At that moment, I stood up and said, "This is my birthday. If you wanted a proposal, you should have talked to me about it first." Then I grabbed my stuff and walked out. Sarah was mortified, and her friends blew up my phone, calling me an asshole for embarrassing her and ruining the night. She even said I humiliated her when she was just trying to do something romantic. Now, my family is split. Some say I should have just gone along with it for the night, while others think she crosses a major boundary. So, AITA for leaving my own birthday dinner because my girlfriend hijacked it for a proposal? OP is not the AH, rather her girlfriend is an AH for hijacking his birthday dinner for an entirely different occasion without OP's consent. Sarah's actions are selfish and disregarding OP's feelings, and they cannot be justified at any rate. So, OP's girlfriend is a big AH, and I would OP's girlfriend 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump on to the next story from F. King crying. AITA for not talking to my cousin because his girlfriend was rude? Context. I, 24F, have a cousin, 24M, who is 2 months younger than me. We basically grew up like siblings, except for our first teenage years, but then grew closer again when we were like 16 to 17. I know him pretty well and he knows me too. He is dumb in a nice way. He's polite, kind, smart and really funny. I know he's got some game since he's got a couple of good exes and I knew some of his flings. He's a bit dumb though. For the past 4 years, 2 girls had him like crazy, dragging him like a dog and leading him on without the intention of ever giving him a chance. I told him several times, and the second time he seemed to learn a little bit more. Anyway, I'm away from my hometown for college. While he already graduated and is already working, we talk a lot for messages, and he seems to be doing pretty well and earning good money for his first year at a real job. Now to the story. Last summer I came back home and he had a new girlfriend, and his mom didn't like her. We agreed to go out to gossip and talk about it at a restaurant. It was a friend of ours, who is also like a brother, fake name Andre, my cousin, fake name Rob, and me, and my friend and I carpooled together to the restaurant, but I told my cousin that me and Andre didn't have any money, and he offered to pay, because we were going just for a couple of drinks at most. When we got there, I texted him and asked him where he was, to which he said, "We are waiting at the table." I was surprised by this and asked something along the lines of, "You and who else?" The translation of the phrase I used, I don't really know how to say it, but literally it will be like, "You and how many more?" But anyway, then he said, "Me and my girlfriend, fake name Yes." To that I just replied, "Okay, on my way," because Andre and I didn't know she was coming because of the obvious talk we were planning to have about Yes and Rob's mom. But we got to the table. When we got introduced, Yes glanced at me like she was disgusted and avoided me like oil on water. When she got introduced to Andre, it was the same thing, and all night she avoided talking to us. Every time we tried to talk to Rob, she interrupted to make a conversation only with Rob, and because of it we barely talked to Rob all night. I tried to get to know her by asking basic questions like how they met, what her field was, and how her first interactions with our family were, and she always responded with short phrases and changed the subject to only a conversation with Rob. At some point, Andre and I were looking at the menu out of curiosity, and saw a drink with a funny name which we joked about, not at all expensive by the way, and then said, "Let's get it. Anyway, Rob is paying." Mind you, we, Andre, Rob and I, always joke about most dumb stuff, but Yes got visibly upset and said, "No, he's not. You pay for yourselves." It was way too weird and I felt really uncomfortable. Andre sent me a text saying that he was feeling left out by Yes too, that he was also uncomfortable, and we both agreed that we wanted to leave. Then, Rob's best friend, fake name Kyla, arrived, since she was with her BF by coincidence there, and they joined us, so we, Andre and I, got even more excluded. The night ended in a rush, with everyone paying for their stuff, Rob paying for the only 4 drinks in total that Andre and I ordered, and then yes ordering an Uber so Rob and her could leave without saying goodbye. A couple of days later, Rob texted me saying that I was mean to yes and didn't try to get to know her. I told him everything, and he excused her by saying that she saw my text and she thought that I didn't like her, so she was mad about it. We got into an argument, in which he basically told me that he understood how I felt, but that I at least should have tried to talk to her that night because he did pay for our drinks. I didn't respond because I felt like he was being weird about it, and I just felt angry and a bit betrayed. Today I came back for the holidays and went to a family reunion, and Rob arrived at the same time as me with yes. I just said a quick, hi, and got inside. All the time I could feel him looking at me confused and a bit sad, but yes just looked at me disgusted, again, but I didn't talk to any of them. My sister, 11 years old, told me that she didn't like yes because she never let her talk to Rob, she doesn't know what happened, and that yes is also rude to her sometimes, and I was in the bathroom when they left, so I didn't say goodbye, not sure if I was up to it, honestly. I feel like I'm being a bit rude by just ignoring them, but I really don't feel like pretending to like yes when she gave me such a bad first impression and treats my sis the same way, but I really miss having my friendship with my Rob. But also, he seems to be completely different and weird with her, and I don't want to put him into a weird spot about it. Do I talk to Rob? Do I talk to yes? AITA. What should I do? OP is not the AH, rather OP's cousin's girlfriend is an AH for being dismissive, controlling, and making no effort to be friendly with OP. Rob also did wrong for unfairly blaming OP despite her attempts to be polite. OP's ignoring her cousin and his girlfriend is justified, but I would suggest OP to have a private conversation with her cousin. As for scores, I would rate OP's cousins GF 3.5, OP's cousin 1, and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Insurance Explained. AITA for excluding my siblings from my wedding and limiting contact with my mother after the wedding? I apologize in advance as this is going to be a long one. I don't typically post on Reddit, so I am honestly winging this and using different names for all of those involved. To start, I have had a strained relationship with most of my family members after entering adulthood, and have always tried to be the peacekeeper in a family filled to the brim with drama. Me, F, 33, and my husband, let's call him Jordan, 37M, got married in May of this year. It truly was a wonderful evening, although some aspects of my immediate family just had a dark cloud over the entire day, and hell, may as well have been the whole planning process as well. I have two half-siblings, Lauren, F, 48, and Johnny, M, 43. They are from my mom's first marriage. They always acted as though they were almost like a second set of parents to me. Needless to say, the family I grew up in was full of judgments, and as the youngest observing all of this has created a deep-seated issue of not being able to trust others easily and always concerned about others' perceptions of me. Both of my siblings have written our mother, Barb, F, 72, off completely from their lives and their families. She has done the crazy estranged mother thing of showing up at their homes unannounced trying to see her grandchildren when she has no relationship with her own kids just a couple of years ago. As she's getting older, it has been getting consistently and drastically worse. Now, for context, I don't have a relationship with my siblings either, but have not been written off by them. I have just chosen not to make them a part of my life. Long story, not going to go into it now. Honestly, since they were in my life less and less, it became less and less dramatic, which I welcomed. Well, about 5 years ago, my husband and I, boyfriend at the time, moved across the country to live close to my parents that recently retired. We like it here, but COVID made it quite difficult to cultivate a friend group for us, and this still is a thing, and we want to move back home. Now, once my husband and I were engaged, my mother went insane about wedding planning. She wanted control of every detail, or that's how it felt. All of my choices and opinions were not right, and she knew better for my wedding. In the process of planning this wedding, we had to decide if we were going to invite my siblings or not, which we were doing a no-kid wedding, and they both have 3, so they may have not chosen to come anyways. At first, my mom said she would act okay around them and just not have conversations with them, full well knowing in the back of my head that she would be all over the grandkids, because let's be real, my siblings typically don't take my opinion with much weight either. Later on, both my mother and father, Greg, M70, stated that they would rather them not come, which Barb and Greg were paying for the wedding, and so we obliged. Plus, at this point we thought my siblings were the bad guys in this story, so we were also worried about verbal altercations taking place at the wedding. Context. My sister gave my mom a black eye when I was little, and my brother has been arrested a couple of times for altercations, and both will get loud, which is the last thing any girl would want to deal with the day they marry their best friend. Unfortunately, I heard my brother moved to another state, and I haven't talked to them in years, so I did not tell them anything about the engagement or wedding. I do feel guilty about this, but it is what happened. My mother was a big stress component when we were planning the wedding. She wanted to be involved in everything, and I mean everything. To pressuring us to do marriage counseling at a church, we are agnostic and my husband doesn't have a good track record at churches. Telling us it is obligatory to do dance classes, that my choice of color palette for the wedding was boring, telling me that my dress made me look fat, also echoed by my dad who reluctantly bought it for me, and many more things. Then, the wedding day came. For reference, I told her multiple times previously that it would mean the world to me that my mom gets ready with me on my wedding day. She shut that down because my aunt and uncle were staying with her. She did not talk to me in the couple of days before the wedding all the way up to showing up at the venue. I got ready with my MIL and bridesmaids instead, and tried not to think about how disappointed I was in my mom's choice. She showed up to the dressing room at the venue just in time to snap a couple of photos of her faking buttoning up the back of my dress, looking happy as a clam. After the ceremony, we all lined up for the entrance into the reception, and I had a table mix-up that my wedding coordinator quickly fixed for me. My mother was up at the front of the group and just was completely upset/complaining about the table situation. I tried getting her attention from the back of the line with no avail. I end up yelling her name loud enough to shut up my entire wedding party. She came walking to the back of the line wagging her finger at me. This was unacceptable to behave like this, and immediately told her that wagging her finger at me on my wedding day is not okay and that the table thing was my mistake and it has been fixed. We have never been super close. She wasn't an affectionate mom growing up, but now that she is older, she is either cold and distant or sitting so close to me it is unbearable. Today, it is 7 months since our wedding and I realized through all of this that I was doing too much just to please my parents. Obligations suck in our kind of family dynamic. I need to think of me and my husband first and foremost, and this is not boding well with my mother. She is a very angry lady. I mean, her life is not what she thought it would be, being estranged from the majority of her children. She has now lost control of the youngest, me, since I am now married. Marriage is when things change dynamic-wise for my mom. It is a pattern. One of her children gets married, and she can't accept that her children aren't putting her first anymore. Now my father, Greg, is also at a point of not wanting to deal with her anymore either, and has even said that marrying her was the biggest mistake of his life. My mother is now wanting an additional phone call every week to go with the obligatory brunch or lunch on the one day that my husband and I have off together. We have different schedules, only allowing Saturdays together. So, it really impacts our marriage in the fact that we do not get a day together, and when we do, we are going out to lunch where you never know what version of Barb you are going to get, and it might just put a damper on the whole day. Mind you, I work specific hours and I have some medical conditions that contribute to my fatigue after work. I come home, eat, spend a couple of hours with my husband and pass out on the couch most nights. I explained to her when she requested an additional phone call that it is just not in my bandwidth. The disappointment in her face was hard to ignore, but I literally people please in hospitality all day and am not about to come home for another hour or so phone call of me being her therapist. She has straight out told me she wished for that, with being so depressed and I am her only friend. So, AITA for limiting time with my mother and not inviting my siblings to my wedding? OP is not the AH, rather her mother is an AH for being controlling, emotionally draining, and overstepping OP's boundaries. OP did nothing wrong by excluding her estranged, volatile siblings from her wedding. It was necessary for OP's mental well-being. She cannot be labeled as an AH for setting healthy boundaries. As for scores, I would rate OP 0, OP's mother 2.5, and OP's siblings 3 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Simple Audience 6975. AITA for not telling him about my pregnancy, which ended up in a loss? My ex-boyfriend and I dated for 7 months and broke up 2 weeks ago. Mid-November I found out I was pregnant. According to my calculations, I was definitely less than 3 weeks. I made an appointment as soon as I found out and got confirmation that I was, in fact, pregnant. My boyfriend and I had already talked about this before, so I knew he would be super excited, but I didn't tell him right away. I waited a couple of days until I found the right way to tell him. Long story short, I had a very strong feeling to check his phone one day. I did it once and couldn't find anything. The same feeling returned 10 minutes later, so I checked it again. Turns out this man was married, whole wife in another country. I don't understand how I never noticed. Safe to say I got zero sleep that night. I didn't know how to confront him, So I waited until he woke up. That morning, he had to go to work. He got called in unexpectedly, and I was exhausted. He left, and I said nothing. I literally acted like nothing happened. I kissed him goodbye, told him I loved him. Everything was the same. The worst part is that 2 days later he came to see me again, and that was the night/morning after that I confronted him. He knew I was feeling off, so he asked me if I was okay. I told him I had been feeling sick, but I was fine. I was so angry I just blurted it out. "Are you married?" He was shocked, confused, hurt that I would even ask him that, but no answer. Every single thing I asked he somehow avoided. I started questioning myself because he seemed so sure of what he was telling me. I even told him I was delusional because I hadn't slept well in days. I can't believe myself. We sat in silence for what felt like hours. He asked if he could come into my house since we were in the parking lot, and I let him come inside. We got into bed, and even though nothing happened that night, I just needed to sleep next to him again. I let him fall asleep and checked his phone again, but this time I took pictures and videos of everything I found. That was my mistake the first time. I was up all night crying and feeling super sick. In the morning, I finally told him what I found. I told him everything I wanted to, and the only response I got was, "Well, you're the only one I'm with here." Like, okay, thank you, that makes me feel better, Omeo. He tried telling me he loved me and he wanted to marry me and have kids with me. He wanted to kiss me and hug me and tried so hard, but I just pushed him off every single time. I ended up hitting him, even bit him, oops, and then I told him to leave. He left that day, and I couldn't even tell him that I was pregnant. There's more. Later that day he messaged me saying that he would give me time to calm down and we could talk again in a week. 1 week, and he would explain everything to me. I couldn't wait a week. I wanted answers ASAP. All he told me was just to wait. I was so angry and I needed answers, so I did what I probably regret the most. I messaged the wife. Long story short, she took it very well and even thanked me for telling her. As soon as she confronted him, he called me. He said, "Baby, please tell me you didn't do that. Please tell me why you did it. Never in my life did I think you were capable of doing what you did." I just told him that everything he asked me was what I had asked him earlier and he gave me no response, but now he was expecting one from me? Then again, he asked if we were really over and if we could still fix things between us. I ended up hanging up on him, and that was the last time we talked. I once told him before that my biggest fear was being a single mom. And here I was about to go through that journey. I was sad that it was over, confused on why he did it, ashamed that I had gotten pregnant so fast. He was my first everything. Angry that I gave him everything, shocked that he was married the whole time. I was feeling everything. I knew I had to control myself because I had to be okay for the baby, but I just couldn't. 2 weeks later I am no longer pregnant. It wasn't something I wanted or chose to do. I was under so much stress, and now the only thing I feel is guilt. I tried to reach out just to tell him what happened, and I'm pretty sure I'm blocked. I don't know what else to do. If he ever finds out I was pregnant, I think he would never forgive me for not telling him, but then again, I feel like I can't forgive him either. So maybe the best thing to do is move on and never speak to him again. I am so broken and feel so alone. I can't even tell anyone in my life because I'm so ashamed. OP is not an AH for not telling her boyfriend about her pregnancy. He was actually a married man using OP for lust or whatever, but his actions cannot be justified. OP owed him nothing after his betrayal. Blocking him and moving on is OP's best decision. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 and OP ex-boyfriend 4.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Enramer. AITA. I told my ex I can't trust her and she called me an incel. I, 34M, started dating my ex, 30F, 2 months ago. We met via a dating app and hit it off immediately due to our shared taste in folk metal. After a week's worth of conversations that eventually turned into long essays from both sides, we finally had our first date. It was electric. She was smart, funny, charming, and gorgeous. We spent the entire night laughing and talking. She later told me she thought it was probably the best first date she ever had. We soon went on a second date, and the chemistry wasn't a fluke. Shortly after that second date, we both paused our dating apps and focused on each other. It was like we had completely captured each other's attention. We talked constantly over text, even when I was traveling. We met in person multiple times in a week for dates. We did all different kinds of activities: museums and art galleries, fancy dinners, hiking, D&D, cooking for her, cozy nights of cuddling and watching movies, etc. We spent a lot of time learning about each other. We are both immigrants in Canada from different cultures. She is Russian, I am Indian, and have never dated someone from the other culture. We talked about our backgrounds, the things that influenced us growing up, what things we valued and cared about, etc. I listened to podcasts she liked so we could share and discuss it with each other. We talked about things we wanted to do in the future, trips we could take together, family members we wanted to meet. We created spreadsheets with date ideas, restaurants to try, movies and TV shows to watch, etc. She gave me a thoughtful birthday present, and we planned Christmas gifts for each other. I say all this to paint a picture that, although we dated for barely 6 weeks on paper, they were an intense 6 weeks. In almost a decade of dating, very rarely have I felt such a connection with anyone. And I don't feel it was one-sided. I was on the lookout for a lopsided emotional involvement, but all indications pointed to the fact that she was just as excited to be dating me, given that she reciprocated my enthusiasm and energy. The only concern was that, in physical terms, we had only softly kissed each other. Our involvement was more intellectual and emotional. But she said that she was very slow to be comfortable with anything physical, and I was okay with that and didn't read much into it. Sometime around week 4, we committed to being serious and exclusive. I suggested it, and she responded with an enthusiastic yes. At that point, I considered us to be in the early stages of a relationship. Premature, perhaps, you tell me. 2 weeks ago we had a dinner date where I cooked for her, and we cuddled and watched The Good Place. She had never seen it. For those who don't know, The Good Place deals with heavy philosophical topics in a very fun and accessible manner. One of the topics that is talked about extensively is soulmates. We watched a couple of episodes, and she, somewhat abruptly, said she had to leave. I wasn't sure what was going on but said good night and went to bed. Next morning, she texted me to say she had something important to discuss. Over a short call, she broke up with me, stating that the show triggered some thoughts and memories in her, but didn't specify what. I was heartbroken but accepted and spent the rest of the day wallowing in self-pity. The next day, we got to talking, and I found out that the reason why she broke up with me was that the discussion about soulmates made her realize she was still in love with her ex. She dated her ex for 6 years during and after college, but they broke up and have been close friends for about 5 years. She had brought this up earlier, but assured me that there were no feelings involved, and I had taken her word for it. Throughout that day, we discussed her feelings, and it became clear to me that she was very much intent on trying to rekindle her relationship with her ex. So, I accepted that. But she wanted to remain friends with me. I told her that I could not remain friends with her while she pursued a relationship with someone else, and that was that for a while. But we stayed in touch, an Instagram like there, a comment here, until we started talking again. Particularly this week, since I had all 4 wisdom teeth extracted, and she emotionally supported me through text. She said that I was giving her mixed signals by talking to her, and that we should discuss it. So, we discussed it today. I told her that she hurt me when she broke up with me. I told her that I felt blindsided and a bit foolish for being led into emotionally investing so soon. I told her that dating was hard, and I wish she had known she was into her ex before she got into a relationship. Finally, I told her that she had broken my trust, and although we had so much in common, I wasn't sure if I could be her friend. Her response was, 1. I am an incel for thinking that I was owed a relationship, and that there was nothing to forgive. 2. That I had constructed a relationship in my head, and that it was unwise of me to be so emotionally invested in someone who is basically a stranger that I barely knew, and that 3. I should get therapy and not be so lonely and desperate. She no longer wants to be friends. As an aside, I had shared with her that she triggered some trauma from a past relationship where my ex, who had at the time undiagnosed BPD, would randomly break up with me. Her response was that things are never random, and that I shouldn't be surprised if I failed a performance review. I wrote back saying, 1. I do not think she owes me a relationship. I am upset because she led me on by telling me she had no feelings for her ex and then hurting me by breaking up with me for him. 2. That it was unfair of her to characterize us as strangers who barely knew each other, and that 3. My feelings were valid under the circumstances, and just because she had not experienced difficulties in dating, she had only been dating for a few weeks before we met, it didn't mean dating wasn't hard. She hasn't responded. I don't think she will read my final response. And part of me doesn't care whether she will. I felt that she minimized the intensity of our relationship, gaslit me for having feelings, and victim blamed me for my trauma. I do not consider her a good person anymore, and do not want to be friends with her. If this all sounds very juvenile to you, then I agree. I am embarrassed for myself. If you think I was too eager and invested too much into the relationship early on, I agree with you, but Reddit, I do want to know, am I the incel? I have had a tough time dating after the pandemic. It sometimes feels like nobody is willing to put in any effort, so maybe I have picked up some incel traits and thoughts that are perhaps obviously on display here, but I am not able to see upon self-reflection. OP is not the AH. He was misled about her feelings for her ex and reasonably hurt. His ex gaslit and insulted him instead of acknowledging his pain. Investing emotionally isn't incel behavior. Expecting honesty in relationships is normal and fair. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 and OP's ex 3 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Uniballer Chuck. AITA for going no contact? I'm a 38-year-old adopted, M. My parents officially adopted me at just over 2 years old, but I was with them at 1 year 3 months. My parents are very much alcoholics, watched it my entire life. There was no liquor cabinet to lock up. You just lock the house. My mother knew every liquor store location within a 3-hour radius and was first-name basis with all the ones in town. Father was no less an alcoholic, but on a lower scale with beer. He on the other hand was also an enabling body to my mother, though I agree one should usually back their spouse. He also never called her out on anything. There are many memories etched into my mind of them and not one without alcohol in hand. And in many cases there were also drunken slurs uttered. As I grew, I became more aware of the underlying and drunken-rooted bigotry. I look back now and wish I had said something sooner, but I let myself become comfortable with it, saying things like, "They're just old and set in their ways." When I became a father, my wife and I agreed to avoid religion with our daughter, that way she could choose for herself when she became older. We are non-religious despite us both being baptized. We made sure to inform the families as such. During one of our many visits home, we noticed my mother teaching our daughter the bedtime prayer I once said as a child, after which I asked my mother not to do that. She agreed not to, but then the next night she did it again. The next time we drove down, 6 months later, to visit, we had taught our daughter to say no if Nana did or said certain things, and Nana offered to babysit so we could have a date night, and I reminded her no prayers and she agreed. We were in the middle of out movie when I got a call about a toddler screaming, "Nope," at bedtime. My mother overfed our dog to unhealthy levels despite us asking her not to the point she would look us in the eye as she did it. There is one rule in our household when it comes to my parents visiting that was really important: no politics, as we were on opposite sides of the aisle with this regard, and it usually brought the worst out of me, hot-headed vulgarity usually. And every time they brought it up, I would make it a point to use the language they kept asking me not to use. Vulgarity seems their one morality point. Despite all the boundaries I had attempted to put up and they danced around over the years, it was only when my daughter was within earshot of something I couldn't stomach that it came to a grinding halt. There we were 3.5 days into a 4-day visit, not one drunken slur about trans or I'm not prejudiced, but enter racial/homophobic tirade, and I'm genuinely surprised. My daughter, 16 at the time, is on the couch next to Nana elbow to elbow, and we're trying to pick a movie for the end of the night and the end of the visit. While death scrolling through Netflix, she happens across Gemini Man, Will Smith. "Nana, you know I really don't like that Will Smith. Absolutely disgusting how he acted up on national TV. Me. Well, not that it matters. His career is likely over at this point. Nana. Absolutely disgraceful. Up on stage acting like an uppity, you know." Absolutely incensed she would have the gall to say this directly in front of my daughter, I went out to the porch for a cigarette and to cool my head in the evening air. My daughter left the room, and when I went back in, I took my mother to the basement. I told her in a calm manner she could not talk like that in front of my daughter. She played dumb and I got mad and called her out on being racist. She blew up on me, "How dare you this and that." Dad, who hadn't even heard the event, sides with Mom. We went home. 3 months later, Dad, who never texts, catfishes me into a call. He asks if I can be civil for the holidays. I said I could, but I need his assurance, their word, they won't speak like that in front of my daughter again. He says I can't talk to my mother like that. In fact, I can't speak to him like that either. That was a year and a half ago, and these conversations live rent-free in my head. I now finding the holidays depressing and lacking. Should I be the adult and attempt peace or stand my ground and no contact? It's my daughter that's missing out on having grandparents in her life, and I hate that it's come to this. So, AITA. OP is not an AH for setting clear boundaries to protect his daughter from racism and disrespect. Here, OP's parents are AHs for repeatedly ignoring him. OP's going no contact with his parents is justified, especially when it affects his child's well-being and upbringing. OP did nothing wrong. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 and OP adopted parents 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comments section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.